Greetings and welcome to a Wednesday edition of the Shotgun Start. It is October 15th. Brendan here. A little bit of a different intro. Sorry to pump fake you there. It's October. Got caught between release patterns as usual, as can happen this time of year. Andy, caught with traveling. So we're going to do a different kind of episode. Have a few guest voices as usual. Try to bring KVV in. Light week. We'll get to India, getting some amusing intel from the ground in India and about the golf course there with some notable players. But wanted to start a little bit with the subject of Jon Rahm. He's been a hot topic this week as his impending appeal or arbitration hearing on DP World Tour fines approaches. I find him to be just one of the most fascinating characters in the game right now. Not obviously because of his play and his stature in world golf, really for the past almost decade. But watching him at the Ryder Cup, I found him to be as important as any European on the team. I could say the most important, but that gets into a subjective analysis. I doubt too many people wrote, talked, or discussed him in this way. We all know he's an immense talent, arguably the best player on the team the last few cycles, one of the best players in the world. The last few cycles, he and Rory have been there neck and neck. Rory certainly had a much better individual year this past season. But so much of the conversation, the discussion, the articles, the reaction had to do with, Shane Lowry getting a half point to retain and an awesome celebration and moment, life achievement for him there. Obviously, Rory going toe-to-toe with adversaries, including the crowd. Luke Donald, Dodo, they could arguably be considered as important as anyone on some of the players making points. But I think Rahm, I don't think you could argue anyone was more important than Jon Rahm. I think what for me he symbolizes is an absolute elite talent buying into this, the team mantra, or as Justin Rose put it kind of cornily, the boys in the badge. No one, Rahm is not one of these players for me that has made his legacy at the Ryder Cup. He's going to do that. He's been doing that. But he's not like an Ian Poulter type. He is absolutely going to be one of the legends of the game, if not is already, but is only using the Ryder Cup as a platform to further enhance that legacy. And, we see the Ryder Cup for some of these elite players, more often than not on the American side, as somewhat of a nuisance, or it's just an extra fall date with some partying and playing for country, and you can get after it there. But for Rahm, he's kind of a guy in the shadows for someone of his stature. So much of the hoopla and reaction were around Rory, Shane, the crowd, Luke Donald, Tommy making another putt, Rose making another putt. But when I thought back on the week, and I was going to write a little bit about this when we were walking out of there, and I'm going to do it now because it's become such a hot topic. Thought back on the week, I think the two best shots that Europe hit were both from Jon Rahm. And it was a recovery at 6 on Friday morning as they were kind of seeding the ground to that leadoff duo of JT and Bryson. Hatton and Rahm gave him 7 holes. I don't need to go through blow by blow the Ryder Cup, a couple of weeks later. But Rahm hits, or Hatton hits one so far left, and Rahm has to dig it out of waist high heather, and they're putting second to have the hole. They would get back in the match and then take that first point from there and never really look back against that kind of emotional DeChambeau and JT group. And then his shot on 8 on Friday in foursomes as well, hadn't him put him in another tough spot. And what the broadcast called one of the greatest shots they've ever seen, he's hitting it from his waist with a horrible lie, left of 8, and makes it for a 2 to actually win the hole. They would take the lead on Cantlay and Xander and never look back after that. I think when I think about the actual shots, there were so many putts that went in the hole to great reactions and crowd pump up moments. When I think about the actual shots, and they were of the recovery nature, and the more treacly type could invoke Seve, recovering from death for a 2 or a halve, or to put it closer than your opponent. It is a little bit of that Seve lineage. I thought they were from Rahm. I thought the 2 best shots that I could recall, the 2 most incredible shots, were from Jon Rahm. But he makes that quick Twitter highlight, and so much of the accounting of these Ryder Cups go back to crowd stuff, go back to Rory as a notable statesman and leader of the European side. And I watched Rahm Sunday at the press conference Sunday night. He sat on the far right. Really took only one question from KVV at the start, was never talked to or never really inquired again. I wouldn't say this is some sort of anti-live thing. This is exactly what happened in Rome, too. He was just sort of in the shadows. And at that point, probably the best player in the world was also in the shadows. And a lot of the questions were for Rory or Luke or Rose or Tommy again. And you have the best player in the world sitting there. And for me, he seems unbothered, given that stature and given all the acclaim and everything he's accomplished as an individual. He seems sort of unbothered to be a secondary figure, certainly not on the golf course, but as part of the narrative, as part of the storyline. And, as they walked off the dais and the press conference had gone and the press had sidled away, he sort of was grinning ear to ear, and from behind with Rory picked him up and like lifted him up. Obviously, he's bigger than Rory, and was just laughing and euphoric. And and this was after he just sat through another press conference where he was, I don't want to say ignored, but not a subject of it. There were a lot of questions for Rory, obviously, and we know, like, in certain instances, I think he's been, I don't want to say insecure, but bothered by maybe not getting the amount of run and press and acclaim as players who are on his level or below his level. And for me, what he represents in the Ryder Cup now for 2 cycles, and certainly this last one, is maybe the best player on the team who cares the least about getting the amount of praise. And I don't know that it's always been that case. So for me, he's always been, coming out of this Ryder Cup, he feels like the most important symbolic European player. There's the play on the course. He goes all 5. He's kind of a warrior for all 5. Didn't end well this time for him. But he also represents something of just putting your entire self aside. He doesn't have another Spaniard on the team. Seems like there'll be some young talents that could join him in the coming years. But for me, he feels like the most important, both symbolic and in play European on the team. Now, the present day news has mostly the bombastic headline is, have we seen Jon Rahm play his last Ryder Cup ever? That feels like sort of a live victim position, of live bot victim shame or a victimizing position when I read it like that. But when you dig in a little deeper, they are at a pretty significant crossroads and impasse. The practical person would say Jon Rahm, they're going to figure out a way for Jon Rahm to play the Ryder Cup again, and probably Tyrrell Hatton, were he to be, on a level that should be warrant a selection at Adair Manor, seems likely. But the sport arbitration panel in London is probably going to deny his appeal. They denied it for the other players that went to live in 2023. The expectation is that he will deny it, that they will deny his appeal. Rahm has dug in and said he's not going to pay his fines. So, he's already come out and said where he's not going to play for 4 months. So we're going to hear probably from the arbitration panel between now and maybe the next time we see him. Now, he got to play at Bethpage because this was pending, right? So it was kind of this ticky-tack loophole of, you're fined, you could be ineligible and suspended, but, the hearing, it hasn't been adjudicated, so go play Bethpage. And that's not going to be the case. It's going to be decided, the arbitration will be decided between now and 27. The panel's ruled in favor of the DP World Tour. They're probably going to do it again. Rahm has said he won't pay his fines. And so that might put us, it feels like a thing that could be kicked down the road. 2027 is a long time, but it feels like the rubber is going to meet the road. It needs to be starting to sussed out like right now. I mean, Guy Kinnings has gone on the record and says we're not in a position to be changing rules that we've had to go to court to defend, which would mean, they could win. Then they're in this prospect of having to change rules to allow Rahm back in. Not only would it not just allow Rahm back in, it opens up the already dealt with questions of Poulter and Westwood and Sergio and the like, who were part of that 2023 decision. So it does feel much more urgent than you might think with 27 so far off. Now you could say Rahm should just pay his fines. right? He'll pay his fines, and he's back on the European tour, or it keeps him eligible, or it will create these loopholes, and he'll play his 4 events that keep him as an eligible member. Of course, if the arbitration panel upholds the DP World Tour argument, we're in a spot where every time Rahm is playing these live events, he's going to be running up the tab, and Liv has said in 26 they're going to stop paying those fines. They'd offered to pay him, and Rahm said, no, I'm not paying. I don't think I need to pay that. I want to support the DP World Tour. I want to play the DP World Tour. And I don't think I should have to also pay fines to the DP World Tour. So it creates these questions of does Rahm think the prospect of him being ruled out of a Ryder Cup will force the DP World Tour's hand to kind of roll back their prior positions? What obligation does the DP World Tour have to the PGA Tour and their strategic alliance? Because they're kind of putting their foot down as part of that alliance, right? They're sticking their nose in the PGA Tour live fight by doing this, right? They don't have to be involved, but the strategic alliance sort of makes them involved. Do they feel like their obligation to the tour is to the point where they're keeping Rahm out of a Ryder Cup in the future? That seems less than ideal. It puts us in a President's Cup situation where you don't have the best internationals playing because of the PGA Tour's entanglement or fight with Liv, Joaquin Niemann type. And I wonder if Rahm thinks he can sit and kind of force their hand, not pay his fines. I'm a DP World Tour member. I love the Ryder Cup. I'll support the Ryder Cup, but I don't need to pay all these fines for it. We've seen this kind of from Rahm recently in the past. He suggested, he didn't suggest, there's a suggestion that he went to Liv as sort of this tipping point that would force both sides to come together. I think it's more than a speculation at this point. I don't know that he expected, or those around him expected, that the framework agreement would not be consummated in some way after he left. He thought he might come back and be able to play dual tours or dual roles or figure it out. I don't know that he thought he would be sort of this banner carrier for Legion 13 and ostracized from PGA Tour events, ones he's on record as saying he misses and loves, for as long as it's gone now. And really, have we heard anything to suggest this is getting close? If nothing else, it feels farther than ever. I know Joel Beal wrote eloquently for Golf Digest that, there's really no reason for Roleb to get skittish about pushing this deal across the finish line. So it doesn't feel close. Rahm, I think when he first left, thought his power, his stature in the game, and it was a big deal. It was a big loss, punch in the stomach for the tour, would bring the sides together faster. And that just never happened. I think, by April that year, they might have been caught off guard at how slow and seemingly at loggerheads the two sides were. Does he think that's going to happen maybe with the DP World Tour? Are you really going to keep me out of the Ryder Cup? My position is like, they'll figure it out. This is all legal mumbo jumbo. It's all these bylaws. But when you're talking about precedent that's been put down with the prior players from the arbitration panel ruling, and Kinning's quote that, we're not changing rules, we're going to court, paying to go to court to defend, we could be in a position where someone's got to budge, whether it's the PGA Tour figuring it out with Liv between now and 2027, Rahm paying his fines, or the PGA or the DP World Tour walking back on their ruling. Either way, it feels like kind of a precarious position, even though we have a couple of years for Adair Manor. I've kind of shrugged it off and said it'll be fine. But reading up more on it, it just does feel like we're at a crossroads, and it's at the point where it's hurting sort of the golf consumer. We're not going to see Jon Rahm play until February. He's taking 4 months. He's not going to go to Dubai or Abu Dhabi as many of the DP World Tour like Hatton are intending to do. Obviously, the full-time PGA Tour players, but even the live players like Hatton are going to do. We're just not going to see him. Now, these are the 4 months you'd want to miss, I suppose, if you were a top-class player, October, November through, January, early February, where he'll restart in Riyadh. But, it just feels like the less and less we see of Rahm, we're missing one of the great titans of the game on not not main stages, but any stage. And so coming out of the Ryder Cup, he impressed me more than anyone of why the Euros have this secret sauce in the dressing room and have the secret sauce on the golf course that actually wins you points. And I don't know that he got a lot of the run and buzz for it because of all the other dramas that were going on. But for me, he feels like a critical piece of that lineage for why it works when the best players in the world are also kind of subjugate themselves to something greater. And that's the European Ryder Cup operation. And given where we're going or where we're at right now, waiting for this arbitration panel, he feels like maybe the biggest story off the golf course in professional golf going into 2026. All right, we're going to dive into a little bit more the usual schedule for the week and get going with our regular Wednesday episode here. All right, this episode is brought to our friends at Mobjack, the elite belt company that's become our good friends in the last year. As I Ron Burgundy this, it says, note all caps, please spell it out. There is no C in Mobjack. So that's Mobjack, mobjack.com. You get 15% off with discount code FRIEDEGG. It's an alternative to belts with logos plastered all over them. Maybe logos to places you don't belong and you just feel like a total imposter. You go to mobjack.com, use the promo code FRIEDEGG. These things are snazzy. They have multiple designs that wet my whistle, at least. They asked me to pick a few. I couldn't whittle it down to two, for different colored pants. A lot of people have blue belts and you got blue pants. That looks, I guess, I'm told that looks like a schmuck. So you could go all sorts of different colors. They've got the Southampton design, the Kenny Bunkport. They're named after all these fancy spots all across the United States. Carmel is another one. Montecito, I believe. They have customer profiles of people who buy on our website. Extraordinary amount of customers that are members at elite private clubs. And so they go to Mobjack as an alternative. That's Mobjack. Palm Beach is another nice design that I've chosen. So a bunch of great colors for the fall. Maybe go with some denim, some jeans, or your normal chinos, slacks, whatever they call those pants nowadays, whatever the en vogue term is. Again, thanks to Mobjack for their support. Fried Egg is the promo code. Honestly, like a badass belt. I'll just sum it up with that. It is very, very, very high quality. You get your money's worth. Fried Egg is belts. The promo code.
Yeah. Might have to go in there. Drop that promo code in there. I'm always in need of a belt. Keep the pants up.
Love that. My son, this time last year, there was a league-wide scandal about the BTA trend, the belt to ass trend. They weren't using Mobjack for that. You got like fifth graders, and like in the handshake line, if you won, they would just pretend like whip as they handshake, and it became like you're going to get thrown out of the league if we catch you doing the BTA trend. It became viral on YouTube. Well, they weren't using Mobjacks for those. They were just using their little football.
So they were doing it to the opponents. They were not doing it to their own teammates.
Not my kids' team, but it became within the league. Someone had done it, and it was going viral across youth football. Apparently, the BTA. I don't know if it still is a thing. Ongoing, but they weren't using Mobjack for the BTA trend in football. I'll just say that. KVV, welcome in. I just did a little riff on Jon Rahm, and I know we've been talking about him a lot today. A good report from 10 Golf, international outlet, who translated it to English, reports he told them he will not tee it up again until Riyadh, where one naturally reemerges in the golf world, Riyadh, in February 5th, I believe. So he's off for 4 months. How do you feel about this?
Sad. I think that I am, mostly over like debating Rahm's decision, whether it was good or bad in this sense, but I am frustrated, I guess, that we just don't get to see him for long stretches. There's a fan kind of sentiment out there. I'd be like, oh, you took the 500 million, bro. Look, I probably wouldn't, but you know what? Like that, to each their own. But I don't see how it benefits the fan. Where I get sort of tied up in like the really dumb perspective is like, you can say that this benefits Rahm, like doesn't have to work for 4 months. It doesn't benefit us as golf fans to not see Jon Rahm. And that's who I think we ought to look at it from the perspective of the fan. And I just find it to be a bummer that this is kind of what he's chosen. Whether it affects his career is a different, conversation. Maybe it's the best thing for his career. Maybe it's great for him and his family. Maybe we get a better Jon Rahm in the majors because he's had a sort of a long break. If that's the exchange, then, I could be talked into it. But in terms of my golf watching, I would like to see him tee it up somewhere over the next. I would love to see him in Australia. I'd love to see him, playing in New Zealand, doing something like that.
SoFi Dome. Maybe he needs to be the SoFi Dome in the intervening months.
I won't go that far. But
I love that.
Piece of shit fucking technology.
You can envision that. That's good. Yeah, to be clear, we are entering the silly season. So he's passing on Skins Game, All-Star Challenge, Hero World Challenge, SoFi Dome, but also the DP World Tour playoffs in Abu Dhabi and Dubai. Obviously, the start of different seasons in the Middle East on the DP World Tour and on the West Coast on the PGA Tour. So, yeah, he is missing some golf and just totally going away for 4 months, at least as from competitive golf standpoint. Maybe he'll do Dancing with the Stars or something else. He'll be around. I don't know. But he's going away. It's a little bit of a bummer, but it cements his first year without a win since 2016 in an individual tournament. I know he won the season-long individual title for LIV without winning a tournament. So we got that going for us. Let's get to the schedule for the week, where Rahm is absent this week. Light week, as it should be in mid-October. But I believe, I don't know if Andy has an event of the week. I'm going to propose one right now, and I'm going to propose it's the Indian Open. The great national open, a spot or India Championship. It's not the Indian Open. It's the DP World India Championship. Let me make sure it's not the National Open. This is at Delhi Golf Club in New Delhi, India. There is a spot in the Open, I believe, on offer in the qualifying series. This will be. I don't think you could. I don't think it's coffee golf. I don't think, unless you're one of those TikTok influencer meathead types that talk about like there's more than 24 hours in a day if you live your life like this and you're like splashing your face in cold water at 3 a.m. Maybe it is coffee golf for those types, but it's 3 to 7:30 a.m. Eastern time, Thursday, Friday, Saturday, and then 7 a.m. Sunday finish. So, could be coffee golf at 5, 6 in the morning if you get up early. In the event, our slew of DP World Tour stars, some PGA Tour stars of Benny Booms. Is that what we were calling him? Was it Benny Booms? If he's a star in your book. Notables are Tommy Fleetwood, Ben Griffin, Brian Harmon, Victor Hovland, Michael Kim, Thurston Lawrence, Shane Lowry, and Rory McIlroy are all on hand. As many people have noted, there is a grow the game impact here. India is a big country, not a giant golfing country. I don't think these guys are going to India in October unless there's appearance fee money involved. Some of them, maybe not all of them. I think Monday Q made the joke. Brian Harmon is going to India in the middle of hunting season. I think he's probably being compensated for it.
Maybe there's some hunting in India that he could get done. Well, cows are sacred, but who knows what else is, not sacred there. You could really,
Maybe there's less, red tape and regulation. You could just start going after everything over there.
Listen, if these guys are going to go to India and then talk about how Rory's talking about how I want to see a part of India that I've never seen before, then you better get your butt on the train and go up and see the Taj Mahal. It's like 2 hours away from Delhi. Like you need to do the full tourist experience. I don't want you just hanging out in your hotel room, eating American food or whatever. Like you need to actually go and do the real Indian tourism experience.
I have heard when they go to the DLF event from folks who have just stomach bug runs rampant through caddies and players. And you just gotta have to keep your head on a swivel at that. And honestly, where you get into trouble is eating some of the hotel food. The one guy told me, if you're eating bolognese in the hotel, that's where you're going to get just popped in the face. Go eat where traditional Indian food or where a lot of people are eating, you might be in good shape. So just head on a swivel. Victor Hovland said he couldn't make it to he wants to go to Taj Mahal, but had to rest or something like that. This course sounds like kind of batshit for modern professional golf. It is old school. I was told it's really cool. Obviously, I haven't been there, but I've spoken to people who've been there many times. It's kind of it's stuffy, from what I understand. It still has like the British influence, the British elements in India. It's very stuffy, like old school clubhouse architecture, really old, kind of cool club. But for modern pro golf, might be full of design disasters, like claustrophobic, doesn't even begin to describe it. Sahali type. It was suggested to me by someone who, knows the DP World Tour and knows professional golf pretty well, that they'd be surprised if Rory's not hitting 5 and 6 irons off most tees. Shocked if he hits driver more than once. I think it would be, I shot DP World Tour, shared a clip of him on the range today. He was just hitting irons. It's like, I wonder if he just don't even take the woods out of the hotel room. Would be kind of amusing, but crazy. There's some images and videos starting to emerge. Super, super claustrophobic. Sounds kind of fun. We did get tipped off that there's like at least one maybe design disaster eligible hole, but it's kind of cool. Yeah. Could be kind of cool. Something different at least. Right?
What if Rory won the tournament by 4 strokes, never hitting driver? That would be super sick.
Like Tiger at Hoylake and whatever it was. Similar achievement, I would say.
Totally.
That's your DP World India Championship. Any other thoughts on this? I mean, it's basically.
It's one of the biggest untapped golf markets in the world. I remember reading there was something like 10 golf courses in all of India until 20 years ago or something crazy. We're talking about the second most populated, I think, country in the world.
Yep.
I don't know. They have a lot of excess of land there, so I don't think.
No, I think we're starting to see a sprinkle of what could be some sort of world mini circuit, world swing, or people are trying to intimate this could be when there is one. I don't know how you execute that in practice. I think it makes for good kind of proposals and in sound bites and boardrooms that in execution are much different. And and maybe I'll do one myself now. Would FedEx be, or a brand like FedEx that spends a crap ton amount of money on the PGA Tour, pay for some 8 event circuit in the fall that's India, Australia, Turkey, wherever the hell and maybe it's an international, it's an HS, some sort of bank or something, where you basically put the top, it's 30, 40, 50 guys on a plane and just go around the world like F1. And the problem again is all these guys have so much money anyways, and when you're talking about 30 guys, so many of them Americans and never want to leave, they're not going to leave for any amount of money during the fall. I don't know. Is that a possibility?
Yeah. No. Is FedEx going to come out and sponsor that? No. No. I think you could maybe get a more worldwide brand of some kind.
Sure.
That would be interested in something to that effect. I don't know. I've always thought the Alibaba in China, right, is as big as or bigger than Google in terms of it's Amazon, I guess it's maybe it's a combination of Amazon and Google kind of thing. It seems like that if there would be a worldwide brand that would, Chinese love golf and would be interested in kind of maybe stamping their name on something like that. But I just don't, the players are such they're such snobs about traveling anywhere. Their forefathers traveled everywhere, as Gary Player can attest, millions and millions of miles, not even in a first class seat, just basically tucked into, a tiny coach seat. And so they have luxuries that the other players didn't, but they still don't really want to go to Australia. I mean, I wish history could sort of elevate something like this to be all right, it all builds towards the Australian Open or something. And then the winner of, that many points gets some sort of world championship trophy that's kind of meaningful in some ways. People always act like the majors are these untouchable things that can't possibly be messed with, which is just a total fake thing, because they weren't even majors until the 60s when Arnold Palmer and the guy from the Pittsburgh Post-Gazette basically was like, these should be the majors. And then it was like, oh, these are sacred. Like we can't possibly change anything like that. So I always kind of laugh at the idea that adding some sort of other crown in golf would ruin the history of it, man. Like that's just all made up.
Yeah, to be clear, this would take ungodly amounts of money. I'm not suggesting FedEx would. It would probably be, if we're being honest, some combination of the PIF and another global brand, right? And we'd get into that whole thing again, and it's hundreds of millions of dollars for 8 weeks to trot around the globe, and the events would probably suck. They'd be pretty soulless, and just nobody would be there. But we're going to these new markets, and we're growing the game, and all that stuff. So I don't know. I don't. I think you're going to keep hearing this as like a untapped or a potential field to kind of to harvest is some sort of more global circuit in the
Isn't
fall.
it just cover though, like cover fire for them to go take appearance money and be like, oh, I want to see different areas of the world and also get $2-3 million to show up there.
No, I think they're just trying to inspire young Indian kids to play golf. I think that's all that's happening here. No, I don't know that it's necessarily their duty to do that, quite honestly. No. But I think the cover for some of this stuff is amusing to hear. Continuing on with our schedule for the week. On the we have the DP World Tour, Indian Championship. I keep calling it on the LPGA Tour with the BMW's Ladies Championship at Pine Beach Golf Links in South Korea. It's second of 4 limited field events in Asia, following up on that disaster in Shanghai with the greens that were all scruffy. The purse is $2.3 million at Pine Beach Golf Links. The defending champ is Hannah Green. Notables so far are Celine Boutier, Carlota Saganda, the human rain delay, Lauren Coughlin, Brooke Henderson, Jin Yun Ko, Minji Lee, Maya Stark, Rio Takada, and Miyu Yamashita are your notables for the BMW Ladies Championship. This will be overnight golf, 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. From Korea. That is Eastern Time, 11 p.m. to 3 a.m. on Golf Channel, Wednesday through Saturday. That is your women's event. They are just kind of swinging through Asia, ready to get back to the CME. No Nelly, no, coming to International Crown. At least the streak is done, I suppose.
Nelly just straight up hates the Asia swing, doesn't she? This is 4 years in a row she hasn't done the Asia swing, I think, or at least 3. She's got no interest. It's
kind of similar to the discussion we just had of can you get Americans to want to travel, right? Or do they need the money, or do they? I don't know. It seems like markets to expose yourself to for personal gain, in addition to professional kind of pushing the LPGA forward. But I don't know, not her responsibility necessarily, I suppose. On the Champions Tour, PJ Circuit, we have the Dominion Energy Charity Classic. This is at the Country Club of Virginia, kind of in my neck of the woods. I've gotten many invitations to come down to Richmond for this classic event. I think they might be done there. This might be the last year. PJ,
it might be a rich man north of Richmond.
That's right. I am. I'm not rich, but I'm north of Richmond. I know that. The purse is $2.3 million. Defending champ is Tim O'Neill. A great story. Notables in the field: Stephen Allen, Stuart Sink, Ernie Els, Retief Goosen, Padraig Harrington, Miguel Angel Jimenez, Bernhard Lahner, and Justin Leonard. Anything we need to know about Champions Tour this week, Peach?
This is a playoffs, baby. We're cutting down. Step one. Bubble boy Brant Jobe sitting at home watching the ALCS with Jackson, but the top 50 will make it to next week, and the all important Phoenix Country Club awaits us. How many buzz balls do you think they're going to sell at Phoenix Country Club this year?
I would love. We need to get on the ground reporting about if the buzzball activation is back for the.
I hope it is. I hope it is.
Not Pete, were the many millions of people sad about the Tiger news this week that the Champions Tour?
Insperity probably definitely is. I would imagine they inked that with every expectation that this. Who I actually think is the most sad, and I'm already seeing a little bit of pub come out for this. The PNC father-son just got absolutely roasted. I mean, after coming down to the wire with Jason Langer last year, this is, You're not getting the Woodses. That's a tough blow.
I mean, cry me a river. That thing has gotten so like a ridiculous windfall for like 5 years. I'm sorry. That event's preposterous. Come on.
Did I ever tell you my story about my daughter, Parth, when I took her to the Pebble Beach U.S. Open, and it's like all these women, the great women golfers of the thing, and the USGA had given us like inside the ropes passes, and so we're walking along, and then my daughter turns to me and she says, "Dad, there's Will McGee." I was like, God, that's who you picked up from this Annika's son. This is just such a disaster for me personally.
That is so good.
See, that's why the PNC matters. That is PNC representation right there.
I will say my kids do like get into, they're like fascinated by that when it's on in the background in December.
I mean,
I think there should be like a 3 wins and you're out. It's time for the Langers to be done.
We need the Immelmans to come take control. We need the Immelmans to take over the show.
And another sign for your beloved tour that the Grim Reaper may cometh.
Yeah, it's not great.
I had someone text me a tweet of the PGA Tour champions doing a video on Scott Dunlap.
Yep.
And someone suggested, do you think they're going to send this to Roll-Lap and say, Mr. Roll-Lap, you can't get rid of the Champions Tour because what else can you do? Get Scott Dunlap retirement content?
Well, I mean, I said that
no offense to Mr. Dunlap, probably a great career. Honestly, seemed like a great fella.
That might be, that video is, the use case for why we can't cut these pensions. Look at Scott Dunlap's retirement video. Like, this is the emotional plea to the business side. Inspirity's going to be making emotional pleas now, whenever, if Tiger ever plays golf again. I mean, we got to hold on. You got to hold on.
We can go get his son Nick on the straight and narrow. Get Nick going again on the PGA Tour. All right, last but not least in our schedule for the week, we have the St. Andrews Links Collegiate. This is going on right now, October 13th to 15th. So what's left is Wednesday morning, 9 a.m. to noon. Wake up Eastern time with little St. Andrews golf. Cal, Michigan State, Princeton, and St. Andrews. A 3-day event on the Jubilee and Old courses. So that's, I guess, coffee golf somewhat. So that's your collegiate event on the college golf. Elsewhere, we have just some deranged notables for Q School we were sent. Q School started last week. Getting through last week at 2 sites were Michael Fiegels, KK Limbhasut, Anthony Paolucci, Cameron Sisk, Ryan Burnett, David Kocher, Corey Sean, Leo Oyo, Cody Blick, and David Carey, which I'm told is Drew's son. That cannot be true. But notables for the 12 sites this week and next, Andy Boys, Vince India, TK Kelly, and Tommy Cool. Those are Andy's friends, I suppose. Scary Halloween Boys, Nick Kruger, Evan Myers, and Lincoln Kahn. So Kruger, Myers, and Kahn. Water Boys, River Smalley, Jake Holbrook, and Peyton Shore. Bradley DeBeer, Peter Bradbeer, and Grayson Porter. So that's the beer. There's got so many of these. Hunter Epson, Cannon Claycomb, and Carson Lundell. So Epson and Cannon, just deranged. What else? James Pyatt, Kieran Vincent, and Turk Pettit. So live refugees, I suppose, that are looking for a way through Q School. What else? There's so many here. Maybe we'll continue to do these next week. Keenan Husky, Angelo Giant Sopoulos. So Husky and Giant, and Nate Diesel, I suppose, would be the interpretation. And the last but not least, Lorenzo Scalise, Kyle Vance, and Michael Sanders. So I think those are politicians at the moment. So Q School, off and running. Keep a note on that. Definitely not on TV, but I suppose it's part of our schedule for the week this week. Let's jump to news. Victor's comments on the envelope rule. Did anything strike you there, Kevin? Sorry. I think that what struck me was just more of like, I wish we had heard from him that Sunday night. He said, Luke Donald said he was near tears, on the verge of tears when they were talking about it. You've reported on him more than many, not most, not all, but many.
Sure.
And he looked really despondent, emotional for Victor, I would say. He looked emotional to me in the press conference. I wish we would have heard from him then. Hearing from him now 3 weeks later, whatever it is, he did seem still quite despondent. Like, I felt awful about it. And what stuck out to me was like Victor, good guy Victor, being like, I felt awful for Harris. Like, he didn't get to play. It was kind of, I don't know if it's embarrassing to be the envelope guy, but I felt bad I felt bad for Harris. And that really jumped out to me in his comments.
One of the things that struck me is like that we live in a world now where even like the stupidest debates and things that surface up on X and whatever Reddit have to be eventually like addressed by the subjects themselves, or else it's like confirmation that it must be true. And so like, this is one of those things that like, I think anybody who has any like common sense knows that Victor wouldn't be like, hey, you know what I should do is just like take a dive here and then we'll knock out Harris English and we'll get half a point closer to winning the Ryder Cup, which we already look like we might win by double digits. It's just such a dumb controversy. Like, if you know anything about Victor, like, it's truly one of the most stubborn, like prideful people in all of golf. And so the idea that he would fake an injury is dumb. And I think like his, explanation was kind of, I think, pretty decent in the sense of, well, what do you do? Like, do you make someone play through like an awful injury and like screw up the rest of their year? It's kind of a relic of what the event once was, but that doesn't necessarily mean it's a bad thing. And I don't think like Keegan Bradley being like, oh, that rule's got to change. Like, that's BS. Like, if it had worked in the reverse, which it did for the US, in Kiowa,
I mean, can we provide the background on that? Like, I think everybody knows, like, Kiowa, like Steve Pate got in a car accident on Wednesday or Thursday.
And played.
And then
after the car accident.
Played. And then gets matched up with Seve, right? And then can't go. So then,
it's such a... It only really matters when it's like such a super close Ryder Cup. I mean, in that instance, I think it was 8-8 going into singles. So I think it's like even more questionable in that instance, especially when all those kind of bad blood between the teams back then. In this instance, like late that night, all of us were kind of laughing and joking and thinking like, God, the Americans this might be a 20 point, they might lose 20-4.
Right.
And so I don't think like any rational mind thought that it was a deal until it started to kind of, bums got tight on the last day when the US started to, come back. So I feel kind of bad for Victor. I think it's another example of what's frustrating about those press conferences and access. People always like say stuff like, well, who cares I don't care if you talk to players or whatever. Well, we didn't get to talk to any players at all until Sunday night. Like, there was no access except for TV after the matches, and then you'd only get the winning team. So then Sunday night, they bring all the players into this tiny little room, and there's 150 media people jostling to ask a question. And Victor doesn't really get asked a question because like he's not the most important story in some ways in there, or maybe got asked something but didn't really get a chance to expand on it. And if that press conference was another 15 minutes longer, you definitely get like a broader explanation from Luke and Victor about why they decided what they did. And maybe the conspiracy doesn't sort of mushroom and make more people annoyed. Some of it is truly just, it's gambling. That's part of what's driving it. Like I had this match or this Victor to score this many points in the Ryder Cup, and I'm pissed off that, didn't happen one way or on the sideline or the other. And so I just find that kind of whole thing, there are ways to kind of quash some of this stuff, but nobody wants to hear the media be like, well, more media access would be one way to do this. They just...
I agree with you. I think there's no doubt it was legitimate injury. I also think playing in an inconsequential event in India 3 weeks later is going to do little to quell the conspiracies. Sure. But that said, I'm not proposing that he took a dive for any reason.
I
right?
mean, I had
Obviously.
kind of a stiff neck during the Ryder Cup from
Right.
sleeping on those beds and the
Right.
Airbnbs that we had, and now it's gone 3 weeks later. Like I'll probably play golf this weekend.
You're
Like
good. You're good.
you know, it feels like 3 weeks is a pretty good time to heal your stiff neck.
All right, other news. We have a sponsor for Doral, a total throwback that just absolutely warms my heart, like original blog boy days for me. Cadillac. Cadillac is coming back for Doral. The WGC Cadillac Doral Championship is coming back for the Trump Internet or Trump Doral now, I guess is what it'd be called, in the Florida Swing this spring, which made me wonder, maybe ponder, maybe pine for old kind of blog era sponsors returning. Like, what other sponsors would you want to see come back? Obviously, everyone wants to see the Cialis Western Open.
For sure.
The Boner Pill Western Open, this sort of genteel, refined car maker that has the Western now. Get them out of here. Bring Cialis back.
I had to freaking explain to my 13-year-old daughter what Viagra was the other day because we were watching golf and the commercials came on over and over and over again. It was top 5, like, embarrassing parenting moment of my life.
Well, now they've got, these Blue Chew ones. I'm just going to say, Cialis and Viagra, at least it was a little bit more refined with the old couple walking on the beach. I mean, the Blue Chew doesn't leave a lot for the imagination for the youths that I have to then, go explain stuff to. So another one. Dean and DeLuca Invitational. Dean and DeLuca went bankrupt. I don't know how, or went out of business. I can't imagine why, selling $25 apples or whatever it was in 2015. But the Dean and DeLuca Invitational, RIP, from former Colonial. Valspar, of course, has been a great, just a absolute bonanza for great title sponsors. We had the Pods Championship, it was formerly known as well as the Transitions Championship, those old people like lenses, transitions and pods. I can't believe this, alternative moving storage unit just got in on a Tampa Bay golf tournament, the Pods Championship. Probably the Career Builder Challenge would be a good one. It might be whatever is now Indeed and all these other LinkedIn, I suppose, has made some of these places obsolete. I've never actually waded into those waters, fortunately. The Career Builder Challenge was a favorite of mine. And then, of course, the forgotten, the long lost, shaving cream in a can that cost 5 cents and lasted 10 years, somehow sponsoring a golf tournament, the Barbasol. Bring back the Barbasol, for God's sakes. This ISCO stuff, get it out of here. If we're bringing Cadillac back, we need to bring back Barbasol. When men were men, drove Cadillacs, used Barbasol, had Cialis. Let's go back to a better era. So those are a few I'd like to see come back.
I got a few for you.
Yes, please.
If you'll allow me.
Please.
The 80s and the 70s are really like a treasure trove for this stuff. And it's all kind of available on Wikipedia. The Sammy Davis Jr. Greater Hartford Open is one of my faves. Like and the Glenn Campbell LA Open is another one. The fact when like singers, entertainers, Joe Garagiola sponsored the Tucson Open for a couple years.
Did it start from the Bing Crosby? I wonder how that,
I think probably,
just kind of filtered
Andy
out.
Williams, famous crooner. He also sponsored the San Diego Open for a little while.
That's great. Yeah,
but Hardee's had an event. It was the Hardee's Golf Classic. It's
that's incredible.
It's now the John Deere. So that was before John Deere got involved, it was the Hardee's.
Yeah.
But there's a couple of there's several beer like in 1983. There were the Miller High Life QCO and the Anheuser-Busch Classic. Again, the Miller High Life was the John Deere before it was the John Deere.
Okay.
So there's a lot of the La Jet Coors Classic.
Yeah, I remember that one. Yeah,
the beer companies really loved getting in on that stuff.
It's kind of amazing, sort of the blue collar mainstream brand. Like McDonald's used to do the LPGA, and like Ronald McDonald in full costume would present
that was
the
up
trophy.
by us, right? That was Bully Rock for a while.
Yes, there was one of Bully Rock. Yep, that was there. I think somebody, I'm trying to remember who won it. Like a player who's still kind of hanging around. I just remember there's an image of Ronald McDonald like presenting the trophy. So ridiculous. So like just sort of like dehumanized. It's just terrible. Anyways,
Lehman Brothers used to sponsor one before they used to sponsor what's now the Farmers.
Oh, really? The Lehman Brothers. Oh, anyways, credit default swap. Sorry, they're gone. All right, yeah. So Cadillac back. Happy about that. That does it for news. Let's put in a quick word for our pro shop. The fall line is out. We have Bedrati staples like the Russ crew neck, the Proctor hoodie, which is coming back to wage war against the tyranny of the Andy hoodie, the Andy tyranny. No, I'm kidding. Both are great product. Andy is popping off, but the Proctor hoodie, also a good original staple. The Jack polo, which is their long sleeve Pima cotton polo, I would put in a strong recommendation for that. Actually, played golf once with Billy. This was a while ago, 5 years ago. He says basically, it was about this time of year, he lives in the Jack polo from basically, mid-September through November. And that was Billy himself, Dratty. They've got we have new embroidered Imperial belts in 4 colors in the pro shop, and a big batch of Richardson rope and trucker hats in the pro shop at the Fried Egg. The hats, those Richardson ones, Andy and I are big fans of those. Those fit really well. I got one on right now, Fried Egg Golf Club hat. So check out the pro shop at Fried Egg. All right, let's go to tease a little bit new feature we're bringing into a Fried Egg platforms, I suppose. It's going to be the mailbag, the KVV mailbag. We'll come up with a name for it. I don't know. That may be the name, mailbag for KVV. We're going to do it on the pod. You're going to answer them at length in written form, probably excerpted in the newsletter. We're still in the experimental stages, but we know we're going to do it. You've got a ton of emails already. Send them to, what is it, KVV?
Yeah, just KVV at thefriedegg.com. If you want to, throw it, and the dumber the better.
Pro golf, rec golf, whatever, right? And you will respond in time. It's going to become a recurring feature. And I think people seek your counsel on these kinds of stuff, whether it's silly or serious, sacred and the profane, as I say. Should we start with the first batch that's come in? We're getting these designed for the website, so this will be coming out soon. Keep the questions rolling in.
Yeah, and if you're a sponsor out there and you want to sponsor this segment, by God, reach out to Business Pete.
FedEx, UPS, somebody that connotes mail being delivered.
Hardee's or Miller High Life. If you're seeing Blue the trend of things getting back in, Blue Chew.
Blue Chew comes by mail. KVV's mailbag comes by mail, right?
It comes in the discreet packaging. How do you not know? They only say it 97 times a day on Golf Channel. How could you not know? It comes in discreet packaging, so nobody would know.
The Blue Chew mailbag. All right.
We might have to call it that anyway.
All right. Why don't I read? You sent me one or two. I'm going to read them to you. You've pondered, I assume, some of these already about because you're going to write the article. This is from Glenn McSpadden to your email. No Americans played a professional golf tournament the week after the Ryder Cup, but I think all Euros except Rory played either the Dunhill or Sanderson Farms. Are the Americans soft? Do the Euros just love the game more? This is from Glenn. Do we have a fact check on that? Is that true? Rasmus played Sanderson. I can't imagine anyone else did.
Did Billy Ho play in the Dunhill or no? Did he?
Well, he wasn't on the Ryder Cup
team. That's
but
true.
But Rahm didn't play.
Yeah. Obviously, they wanted to play some of the elite courses in the world. Carnoustie, the old course, Kings Barnes, and where the Sanderson is played.
Country Club of Jackson. Don't.
Jackson.
Yeah.
No, I don't know. I think it got me thinking about why isn't there maybe is Pebble Beach the closest equivalent to the Dunhill, like an American version of this, where you play 3 great courses with your sort of celebrity partners or whatever, or your dad or whatever you want it to be. Is that the closest equivalent of it? I think I think there's a historical obligation for Euros to go to the Dunhill. And also you get to play the old course with a family member half the time, right? Rory's said that he likes doing it just because his loves playing it with his dad. He can't ever get enough of that. And Kings Barnes is what it is. It's kind of soulless, but it is very pretty when you're there. And I don't know why someone would willingly play Carnoustie, but It's certainly got its historical challenges as well too. It's a good question that I feel like probably has a lot to do with the fact that the Americans are just so rigid about like their season kind of ends at the Ryder Cup, and then they're just kind of all in it for the hero, kind of tick and clock till the hero. If that's where we probably won't see Scotty. Speaking of Rahm, like what are the chances we see Scotty before the hero? Probably pretty small. So no. I think the history of it, right, has something to do with it. Like if they were playing at Pine Valley the week after the Ryder Cup, some sort of event, I think there's a good chance that some of the pros would go there, would show up and be like, you know what, I've never played Pine Valley, or like I've never played. I remember talking to Rory at Pebble this year, and he's like, yeah, I've never played Cypress Point, so I'm going to go out and play Cypress Point on Tuesday of the week of the Pebble Pro-Am. And so it still does draw in, like, the good course is going to draw in people, and maybe Americans don't have quite the appreciation for the good kind of architecture courses that the Euros do. I don't know.
It's not their tour. Like, they're not soft. They just didn't have the event the week after. And by God, when you finish the Ryder Cup, you can go away for a little bit. I mean, it's the point that if this says anything, it's the DP World Tour is insane for scheduling such a historic good event the week after the Ryder Cup.
That is truly insane. Why it couldn't be, every time there's a Ryder Cup 2-3 weeks after the Ryder Cup. And maybe the weather sucked as much as it was already.
It was awful.
It wasn't like, moving it back as a potential for worse weather. It's just probably this similar kind of dice roll every time either way. So
yeah, they got Fitz, Hatton, Lowry. I know Bob obviously won it.
If you were an American, you got Fleetwood. Your teeth kicked in at the Ryder Cup, would you hop on a jet and go over and play a 6-hour round at the old course?
No, I don't know if they're soft, but it's just a matter of scheduling and how the cookie crumbled. I don't think it's a commentary on Americans being soft. Yeah. Another one for KVV Mailbag. Question from Matt Lawn. If modern professional golfers want to be truly great, quote unquote, shouldn't they hold off on marriage and children until their late 30s? Scotty puts an arrow in this argument, but so many others have fallen off after marriage. And he provides some examples, which, this is, again, not our position. This is the emailer's position. Jordan, JT, Ricky, Brooks, DJ. If you want to be truly great, shouldn't you hold off on marriage and children until your late 30s? Okay, man, thoughts?
Did Blue Chew plant this question in this calculus here? I don't think that I hate it when people out there kind of blame like someone's family life on the drop off in golf, that it's like, oh, should have never gotten married, should have never had kids. Like, yeah, that's kind of like the most important things in your life, right? So like you're disappointed that some golfer's legacy isn't as good as it was because they chose to delay having kids until a certain time. It just doesn't really make a lot of sense to me. I remember Jack Nicklaus used to always say, like, my promise to Barbara was that I would never spend more than 2 weeks away from the kids and her. And so I feel like it's easier now to make that kind of promise, right? As you can bring your kids in an RV, you can, I don't know, Brendan, you feel like you've gotten worse at your job since you had a sort of a slew of kids? Like, no, like you just kind of figure it out and you juggle it. Like, that's just like kind of a career and a life. I think it would be pretty insulting to say to Jordan Spieth, like, the reason that you're bad is because you had kids, not because like you just happen to go on like a generational run. Now the flip side of that is, does it get harder to like practice maniacally when you have kids?
Yeah.
And you can't be there for every bedtime or, the school drop offs and stuff like that? Yeah, probably. But, part of being a grown up is like learning that you have to work to put food on the table, and you're going to miss some moments, and it teaches your kids like that you're going to work hard. And that's an important part of things too. So,
yeah, I think like also sometimes this stuff can get into kind of regrettable, like blame the wife, blame the kids territory, which is obviously not where, and you see that in other sports, I'd say more often. I don't really see that in golf, but you see that like, although the girlfriend's ruining his whatever, his the pitcher or the quarterback or something like that. It's just obviously that's not a territory that's justified to wade into.
I mean, when Mickelson won the Masters in 2010, they were win for the family. It was like that he had found balance in his life because he was such a family man. So I think that like people use it in both directions, and it's just kind of, it's more like a golfer's career is going to be a golfer's career, and then it's people out there are going to kind of try to use excuses for why it isn't good or is good. Oh, he's got a great perspective now that he's got a kid. Like, some of it's all just kind of hot air and bullshit.
And by the way, like, I know this question wasn't directed at this subject, but the people that actually have to consider this dilemma or dynamic are LPGA pros who have to actually carry fucking children and raise them and nurse them and like bear them and take on like a lot of the mental load and all that stuff. Like, we see that come up over and over again. What do you want to be truly quote unquote great? Like their career, I don't know. You got to get it done before. Like that's the real like sacrifice decision, fork in the road dilemma stuff. And whoever, some American pro having a wife and kids, so he has to practice 45 minutes less or something. I don't know. That's kind of it's a pretty different world we're talking about. We want to do a third one?
Sure, why not?
All right, this is more rec golf question. This is from Gavin Kane for the KVV Mailbag. First off, I describe myself as a twice-a-week player. I always walk and carry, but I have a group of friends, not my normal degenerate crew, he adds, who play 6 to 8 times per year while averaging 6 to 8 beers per round. Is it rude for me to walk when I play with this group? Am I being, quote, too serious out there?
No, I don't think it's rude for you to walk. I think you should accept some playful shit from your friends if you walk. And I think the benefit is that they can carry beers in their carts and you don't have to put it in your bag. I have friends who have, if you look at their golf bags, the right side of the golf bag, the leg is bent a little bit from the weight of the beers in they would carry in the big pocket.
Yeah.
Because that's kind of how we do, is just load up the side pocket and then carry them until they're drank. But I don't think like anybody should be guilted into riding a cart ever. And in fact, like, I think it's pretty fun to like drink beers and walk at the same time. It makes you feel like a little less kind of like a bum at the end of it, like you got something done.
Sure.
And also push cart is
Mick Ultra ad or something. You're being active. All right. But yeah, push cart. You're right.
You don't have to encourage your friends to walk. Some people just aren't going to do that. They don't want to cross. They want to just sort of sit in the cart and get out and hit a ball, whatever. But don't find any guilt at all if you just playfully take shit from your friends. That's what you should do, is like be willing to accept the mild bit of grief, and you're not going to miss out on that much like social dynamic, like walking, whatever.
Yeah, I would be pretty confident and secure in myself to just walk, and any shit they would give me, I'd feel like I was in the right.
It's the people who are in the carts then who feel a little bit like guilty and insecure about it. So they are annoyed about the whole thing, but don't take their feelings into account.
Yeah, it's like those people using fake excuses to use the motorized carts at Disney World. That's a scourge on the Disney World scene. No, I'm kidding.
We should make those people run wind sprints before to test out.
No, I'm sure there's many justified people in those. There's just some that aren't. Anyways, that does it for this Wednesday episode of the Shotgun Start. KVV, thanks for jumping in. The mailbag again is kvv@thefriedegg.com. We're designing that up nice and pretty for the website. Rec golf, pro golf, off the wall questions, send them in. We'll keep it humming on a consistent basis. Thank you, Kevin, for joining us. Appreciate it.
Anytime, buddy.